Denny Hamlin and Progressive, that new partnership, starting off with a bang here. Denny getting one of the most impressive wins, maybe not all throughout his career. I would say 55 of them. You certainly have a lot to pick and choose from there, but certainly in recent times, it's been almost a full calendar year since he won a Cup Series race, and doing so in dominant fashion at what I guess is probably his second home track in Virginia at Martinsville. Denny Hamlin's 44 years old, and I saw some chatter on social media that we've seen drivers kind of hit their primes in their early 30s. By the time they get into their or late 30s, rather, I should say, by the time they get into their early to mid 40s, we sometimes see a decline in driver performance. Some were surprised that Denny Hamlin looks this competitive as he enters his mid 40s at 44 years old. Tanner, you said you were not surprised by what you saw on Sunday. Why is that?
I think that driver ages have been widely been pushed out to the forefront as a reason for a driver's decline. And while obviously there are some biological factors that do line up with aging and things like that, and how acute you are at making decisions and reaction time and things like that, Kevin Harvick won 9 races when he was 44 years old 5 years ago. How quickly we forget. Yes, you could look back at someone like Jimmy Johnson, who sharply declined around age 41, 42. But I think that the other aspects of each driver's individual situations also should come into the purview of analysis. So let me break it down in a very quick way. Jimmy Johnson came into the 2018 season with the pointy nose Camaro, which was objectively terrible, and only 2 drivers won races that year in that car, Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon. And we all know how he won his one race. With that pointy nose is a very
pointy nose
strong
came in handy, I
feature.
was going to say, yeah.
Now, not only that, he came into that season with 3 teammates that had not won a single Cup Series race, or in the case of William Byron, hadn't won one at all, or hadn't even run one at any point. So when you lean on Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Casey Kane as your nucleus, there's still at least a little bit of speed you can eke out of that. But when you're trying to bring 3 other children up to speed, you're going to have a bad time as the lone veteran of the team. Add on to that the fact that his relationship with Chad Knaus deteriorated at the time. That's not going to help. Plus, there was also a reduction of horsepower around that same time, and they were playing with downforce packages and things like that. That's not going to help a guy that's that age, more often than not, given the other circumstances. With Kevin Harvick, his decline in 2023 was greatly exaggerated. He was still strong at a number of the tracks that he was typically strong at. He was going to win the Spring Phoenix race that year. If Harrison Burton doesn't spin out, he had an 8-second lead. I know this because I was there. His teammates at the time, the only one of them that had won in 2020, one prior to 2023 was Chase Briscoe at Phoenix the previous year. The other 2 came in relatively inexperienced and unsuccessful in their attempts in Cup. On top of that, SHR as an organization fell off after Harvick's monumental 2020 season, as we saw. Martin Truex Jr., his decline, a lot of people point to age. Don't really know why. Do we all forget collectively that JGR went the last 18 events last year without winning? That Denny Hamlin came into this weekend with a 31-race winless streak? I didn't forget that. So, yeah. On top of that, Truex spent the last year of his career learning a brand new model of car. They changed the Camry body from 23 to 24, where 23 he had won 3 races and was the regular season champion. He comes into the next season with a brand new car in his what ended up being his last year. Again, age is not the sole determining factor of a driver's decline. And I'm really getting tired of this conversation of, oh, well, he's over 40, so, oh, the cliff's coming. It's like, that's just not how auto racing works. And if it was, then Fernando Alonso would not be an F1 right now at his advanced age. Has anyone even raced at F1 at his age prior to him? Not anybody in my lifetime that I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, the Fangios of the world way back when, but in modern time, it's unusual what he's doing for sure.
Yeah, it's a young man's game in F1 usually, and yet he still has a seat on the grid. Lewis Hamilton's 40, he still has a seat on the grid. Just got debatably a promotion of sorts going to Ferrari from Mercedes after they're languishing the past couple of years. So yeah, like, age is not the sole determining factor of a driver's decline. There are a number of factors that go into this that create a lot of nuance in each situation. Denny Hamlin, if you look at his situation right now, yeah, he has a new crew chief, but that crew chief is not a new crew chief like Ty Gibbs' crew chief. Chris Gale has experience, has won at the cup level a couple of times. He mentioned coming into this season that it was actually great to not be halfway mentoring a driver going into a season, trying to get them up to speed, trying to, ease them into telling them, what they need to do to the car to adjust it to their specifications. And you combine that with Chris Gabehart, his old crew chief, moving up to comp director. There's going to be some time there where everything coalesces, everything takes time to really gel when you take on that new role. So this was the first weekend we saw Gibbs have 4 pretty solid race cars for the first time all season, and I'm sure it won't be the last. You also have to consider that his 2 teammates in Chase Briscoe, who he's coming into a team that has tenure, has been together for a long time. He inherits that after having won a race last year, has playoff experience, has gone deep in the playoffs, is 30 years old. You have Christopher Bell, 32, is really coming into his own this season. Would have won yesterday more than likely if Hamlin wasn't in the field for his 4th win in 7 races. I mean, everything around Hamlin compared to the 3 situations that I just mentioned to you outside of Truex are all a more formidable position than any of Johnson's, Harvick's, or really anybody else that you can think of that had a decline because they aged. So, yeah, for me, it's just a tiring conversation, which is kind of coincidental seeing as we're talking about age. And I'm just really getting at my wits' end with it. I think that we need to have a bit more of a nuanced discussion about when a driver starts to decline rather than just being like, oh, well, he's 44. It feels rather lazy. It feels undercooked. It needs more analysis when these kind of things happen. And I'm hoping that us talking about it here can help spread that dialogue a little bit more, because between you and me, I think Denny Hamlin's got 4 or 5 years left in him, the way he prepares, the way he goes about building his team. I don't see a path for him leaving the sport anytime soon. So I think that hopefully with Hamlin continuing to have success at his advanced age, that we can move on from this part of the discussion when drivers age, that they just suddenly get worse. I don't think that's always the case.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I think Jeff Gordon comes to mind as somebody who stepped away in his mid-40s, but he had back issues for many years. I mean, there was a number of contributing factors. As if Gordon had anything to prove as well. Not even a first ballot. I say don't even need a ballot Hall of Famer. I think certainly earned the right to step away whenever he felt the time was right. But if you want to go down the Hendrick path as well, Mark Martin was winning Cup races at age 50, nearly won a championship in 2009. Ron Hornaday, if it weren't for Kyle Busch at Texas in 2011, maybe could have won a Truck Series championship at 53. So, it is not unprecedented by any stretch of the imagination in NASCAR for drivers to remain competitive through their mid-40s, late 40s, and even in some cases into their early 50s here. I do think there is something to be said, and I think Kevin Harvick's mentioned this as well, about drivers being under more stress from the chaos of the playoff format, and maybe that would lead them to say, I've had enough a little bit sooner. But I think that would be exhaustion from the system. Maybe we saw that with Carl Edwards, and of course Carl stepped away much sooner than I think he needed to or was expected to for personal reasons. I'm not judging him at all. I think if you want to hear his story, I think the Dale Jr. Download episode that he just did was absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend it. But I think when you look at any driver stepping away from this sport, or this series rather, I think there's always a number of contributing factors, and age might play a role sometimes, but I don't think, like you said, Tanner, I don't think it's something where you could say like he reached the magic number of 40 or 44 or 48 or whatever. So now we're going to see a sharp decline. I think this is a sport where you see it much more on a case-by-case basis. And I think we have to take that into consideration when looking at how much longer a driver might have. Because I'm with you. I think, maybe Denny will win a championship and decide, I'm going out on top, I've had enough, and step away at the end of this year. I don't know. Who could have predicted Carl Edwards would have stepped away when he did? And he's got the business side of things all set for him with not just owning a team, but now trying to break into the media world as well with his podcast and everything. I don't think anybody would judge him if he walked away, but I also don't think anybody would judge him if he decided I can do this for another 3 to 5 more years, because as we saw this weekend, there's nothing that suggests to me that any sort of decline like that is imminent, at least any time in the near future. So we'll keep an eye on that as the season goes on. But I tend to agree with you. I think the age discussion deserves more nuance than that.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add in was that compared to Carl, I think that the championship trophy for Denny Hamlin speaks to him like the Green Goblin mask speaks to Norman Osborn.
Sure.
I think that it's just something that Denny needs to have to feel whole. And I think he's going to continue to try until he physically can't.